Welcome to Galaxy Grid, a new show from Galaxy Research where we talk about everything that's hot and topical in crypto. I'm joined by Lucas Chayan, Will Owens, and Zach Bacorny. Gentlemen, what's up? Welcome to Galaxy Grid. It's an exciting time. Bitcoin made a new all-time high, over 125K, and that followed gold, which is now pushing close to 4K. Will the rally continue? We will discuss. Token 2049, I am fresh back from Singapore. It just happened. And perpetual futures DEXs were all anyone wanted to talk about, specifically this battle between Hyperliquid and Aster. We'll discuss the ins and outs of this new trading battleground. Zcash is back, believe it or not, rising 220% over the last week on the back of renewed interest from some key thought leaders. 00 received a no action letter from the SEC, allowing it sort of to move forward with its token launch. We'll talk about what 00 is. Very interesting project. Disclaimer, Galaxy is an investor in 00. And MetaDAO, finally a Futarchy platform, launched on Solana last week. It's getting a lot of buzz. We'll talk about what Futarchy is and what it portends for the future of governance, both on-chain and off. Before we get to any of that, I need to remind you to please refer to the link to the disclaimer in the podcast notes, and note that none of the information in this podcast constitutes investment advice or an offer recommendation or solicitation by Galaxy or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities. Welcome to Galaxy Grid, a new show from Galaxy Research. Like I said at the top, it's going to be an exciting one. We've got the four gentlemen on the show today. We may have some different characters join periodically. We're going to keep this fast and tight. So let's start with the first story. Bitcoin, new all-time high, 125.5K on Coinbase, just shy of 125 on Binance, the first all-time high since August 14th. And Michael Saylor said he wasn't buying this whole last week when we ran from 108 to 125. I don't know. What do you make of it, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I mean, we've almost gone up 20,000 in a straight line with like little to no retracement. Like you said, it's very notable that Strategy has not purchased in, the last week entirely. Bitcoin dominance up a little bit since September from 57% to 59%. So people that are kind of bag holding alts are still waiting for alt season. I feel like people in crypto are not even really euphoric at all. It's more like I've been seeing a lot of good traders that I follow talk about shorting at 109K. A lot of people kind of shorted the bottom, it seems like. But I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens next. But very, very good time to be holding Bitcoin.
Yeah, that seems to be the consistent theme with all the all-time highs in Bitcoin recently. We break an all-time high and crypto Twitter is essentially radio silent. Like, I think over the last couple of days, Alex was the only one on my timeline that even mentioned Bitcoin was really at an all-time high. So
it's kind of the environment you want, right? You don't want everyone to be overpositioned. And then it's also great, like you mentioned, there wasn't a lot of MicroStrategy buying, but I think ETF flows last week were the second highest in history. So you've got, material buying happening from other people. And then you also have this great narrative with, I'm not saying the government shutdown is good, but, something that's actually materially driving interest in Bitcoin as a whole. So it's definitely an exciting time. And October is manifesting.
Yeah, it does seem like it. And you guys are right. I mean, the timeline very silent on Bitcoin ownership. It does feel, Udi Wertheimer, among others, has been saying this for months, that your favorite crypto people don't own any Bitcoin. And it was very quiet. It did happen sort of early hours of the morning on Sunday morning Eastern time. So that all-time high push. Still, though, we're trading around 124,000 as we record on Monday, October 6th, around 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And gold, I have to mention gold, especially Lucas, because you mentioned the government shutdown. Gold up 50% year to date, outperforming Bitcoin, Ether, most other assets year to date, nearing $4,000, the sort of iconic multi-millennia hedge. You can only hope, I think, if you own Bitcoin, that Bitcoin starts to trade, sort of play a catch-up trade to gold in this, institutional, this environment where the institutions are, well, they're not even open, I should say. The government is currently closed as we record this.
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter timeline is so warped. It's only crypto Twitter at this point. But I do wonder, like, if outside of crypto Twitter, there are people who are just, euphorically posting the Bitcoin chart right now. I need to figure out a way to see that better, to be honest.
All right, let's move on. Token 2049 just happened in Singapore, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, crypto conference in the world. I think, I was there. I think the only conference that I've seen that is as big as Bitcoin, the Bitcoin conference. But of course, that is Bitcoin specific. Token 2049 is sort of a big tent crypto conference. It was in Singapore, and it came sort of right at this moment where Hyperliquid, which has been on a run, both in terms of users, but also the Hype token this year, is facing for the first time, I suppose I should say, a Perp DEX challenger in Aster, which is affiliated with the Binance ecosystem. I don't know, maybe Lucas, you can explain this one to us. Like, what is happening what is the Perp DEX battle? What is it?
I mean, I think we're basically seeing that people are finally catching on that perps are probably one of the best products to have come out of crypto, and there's a huge gold rush for it. So, you've got Aster, which is the Binance competitor that's been rolled out, but, has been deployed and active for a long time. You've got things like Lighter, which is another perps offering that I would say is it's like Hyperliquid, Aster, and Lighter are kind of the three main competitors right now. And they all have different designs, which is interesting. Some of them both on the technical side using like ZK and stuff like that, but you also have different fee models and things to drive volume. So it can be a little bit difficult to know, who is actually getting a lot of traction and who's going to, be a long-term winner. I think Hyperliquid has clearly planted the flag as both a first mover and something that has built out a really loyal user base. But if you look at volumes, you'll see, Lighter, Aster, and Hyperliquid Aster, the volume numbers, we're not quite sure.
Talk
There's
about
some
that.
issues.
Let's talk about that because I saw DeFi Llama, OXNGMI, the founder and creator of DeFi Llama, one of the most widely relied upon crypto data websites. What did they do? They deprecated, Zach, maybe you saw this. Did they deprecate or remove Aster from their data? They said that they couldn't trust the Aster API.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like they had some suspicion on the authenticity of the volume on the application. I mean, DeFi Llama does a pretty good job of making sure that their data is tight and as accurate as possible. I also think NGMI was going back and forth with some RWA issuers a couple weeks ago on some pretty similar lines, where it's like, okay, like you claim to have all of this TVL, but it's mostly just a reflection of a database off chain. Like these aren't actually on-chain assets. So they take data integrity and authenticity pretty seriously. So I think this is just kind of an extension of something they've been doing as an organization for a number of years now.
Yeah. Also, like according to them, Aster perp volumes have kind of started to mirror Binance perp volumes almost exactly. This is like what he tweeted. And then he also mentioned that there's no way to get lower level data, such as like who's making or filling orders. So until they're able to get that data to verify if there's like, this suspected wash trading, they're just going to be like at least perp volumes are entirely going to be delisted from the platform.
Yeah. Does it go to the core of like the difference between these platforms? Because the other thing I've been noticing is that is there, when you trade on Aster, where exactly are you trading? It's not, I mean, Hyperliquid has the Hyper EVM and Hypercore. What is Aster just an off-chain exchange? It's not clear, right? Like we can't go in and see any data from Aster, right?
Yeah, it's not like going to like a block explorer or like going onto Dune and writing some SQL and checking like, oh, this address sent like what transactions.
Yeah, but why is that, Zach? Why isn't it like that?
It seems to be an off-chain matching engine essentially. It lacks an underlying blockchain. And I even believe DeFi Llama has them listed as just off-chain as the chain category. So it's not like an app on Solana will say like, oh, this exists on the Solana blockchain, or even Hyperliquid shows up as Hyperliquid on DeFi Llama. So this is just listed as quote off-chain.
Yeah, like I think it's also important to mention. Sorry, Lucas.
If you search like Aster on DeFi Llama, nothing comes up. What Zach is saying is it literally just has the title off-chain.
I was just going to say, with Aster, I feel like no trader that I've spoken to actually thinks Aster has like a better UX for trading than Hyperliquid. The entire thesis from the start has pretty much been like, oh, CZ and Binance are just going to like crime Aster and farm the airdrop. Like they're doing this massive airdrop. Everybody's trying to like trade on Aster so they can farm the airdrop. And it's like, nobody actually thinks that Aster is like a superior perps trading product compared to Hyperliquid, is at least what I've seen when I've spoken to traders.
But I think that gets to a lot of like how this market is evolving, right? Which is, ideally you think the tech is going to basically all converge. And so it's going to be all about distribution. And so you've got Hyperliquid, which has been able to build up their own native community and clearly has, a solid user base that will continue to use the product. You've got Lighter, which I think was kind of like the second mover and has also been able to do a Hyperliquid-like play where they've built this community that is looking like they're going to get a massive airdrop. I know, Will, you were talking about how high points are going for already. And then you got Aster, which plugs into the Binance and all of Binance distribution. And, the tech aside, Binance has a very powerful distribution mechanism. And they're also very good at creating these flywheels that drive a lot of activity. They've done it with their Binance Alpha program and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that theme extends to essentially everything now going forward, right? The idea of having a technological moat, I think, is diminishing. And now it pretty much just comes down to distribution and how deep your markets are. Like, people want to be able to log on and go long $100 million. They don't care about the underlying tech. It's kind of being commoditized.
Maybe it's not a perp DEX war. Then we've got Hyperliquid versus Binance. It sounds like, Hyperliquid on the track, CZ strikes back is the story I'm hearing, but I guess there's more to come. This is one of the hottest sectors in crypto. Let's move on. Zcash, ZEC, the privacy coin that uses shielded transactions, is back in the discussion after rising 220% over the last week. I couldn't find any catalyst for this except for a bunch of people saying that they like Zcash, a bunch of well-followed people. Anybody else see anything, or is this sort of just people decided that they like privacy coins again?
Yeah, I mean, Mert had this long thread, like is probably one of the people you're thinking about, where he was kind of just shilling the privacy narrative. I think that with surveillance rails gaining attention, people are starting to realize, like privacy actually is important. Like maybe it's not the best thing in the world for people to be able to, anyone in the entire world to be able to see every transaction. It's interesting because Zcash has been dormant for years, literally pumped 220%. Naval tweeted, and then also Hyperliquid actually listed Zcash perps. And it's interesting because Monero, which is, a bigger privacy coin in terms of FTV, is not listed on Hyperliquid, so you can't trade perps there. But I mean, yeah, Naval tweeted, he tweeted like Bitcoin is insurance against fiat, Zcash is insurance against Bitcoin.
No idea what that means
and then,
at all, but Naval Ravikant, a very well followed individual.
Yeah, God candle after that tweet. So I mean, we'll see what happens, but yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and price always leads narrative here, and I think once again the narrative makes a lot of sense. Hey, we're getting regulatory adoption across the board, and all this stuff is going to have a lot better KYC, AML type stuff. Like, if you're into the original crypto, cypherpunk type ethos, then privacy is going to be even more important going forward. And I think that narrative is really starting to catch on with a lot of people.
It just seems like a blast from the past, though, to me, and it also seems a bit out of the blue. I agree. I think the financial surveillance situation, well, it only ever gets worse. It never comes back. Or, it lurches forward and fits and starts with opposition from freedom fighters worldwide. I saw that Apple is being asked yet again to create a backdoor to its services in the UK. The UK is proposing a digital ID, right? So it's true that these things could be the catalysts that are moving this, but it also seems like some people just decided they like Zcash all of a sudden. Down incredibly over the years, to be clear. Like, just if you look at this chart, we're not pulling up charts on this show at the moment, at least, but up now a lot, more than doubled, almost tripled in the last, week. It's now at 2.6 billion market cap. To Will's point, Monero, the bigger one, uses a different type of technology, ring signatures for privacy, 6 billion market cap. So, and not seeing the same move at all. So this isn't a broad privacy coins move. It doesn't look like. It looks like a Zcash specific move. I have to just go out and it's like that GIF from that video game. Just doubt. I doubt that this can sustain. I don't think this is like the beginning of a giant narrative. I would come out and guess. But I guess we'll just see. Let's move on. We're running out of time here, so let's talk about 00, some kind of new internet fiber thing. We're gonna ask Lucas to explain this to us. But big news, big news. They received a no action letter for their 2Z token from the Securities and Exchange Commission. It basically said that this type of token, this type of utility token with programmatic incentives, which is almost like mining, seems like it, right? Non-arbitrary incentives. The SEC enforcement staff said they would not be inclined to bring an enforcement action alleging that it was an investment contract. This is a big deal. This is the only no action letter relating to crypto that I'm aware of since Turnkey Jet in 2019. No action letters are not binding precedent, but they are widely usable and seen by industry as sort of an indication of what the staff's feeling is. And so for the staff here to say that they don't think this type of token is a security, is an investment contract, and therefore a security that they would regulate, it kind of gives a roadmap, at least in this current SEC, for other token issuers. And again, the Turnkey Jet one in 2019, the things that it was doing that the SEC said it wouldn't sue over, the SEC said it wouldn't sue them because if the token was redeemable for $1 and it was not tradable on secondary markets, right? So, and that they didn't use it for fundraising. So basically, like an airline mile was the last time. This one, much more expansive view of what is not an investment contract. Maybe Lucas, you can tell us about 00 and anything else about this that's on your mind.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I think 00 is basically a project that's saying, hey, these high performance blockchains are getting to the point where using public internet as the networking layer is actually a constraint on their performance. And there's better ways we can do this. And the way we can do it is, almost adopt a model that's used by a lot of high frequency trading firms where they have their own fibers through which they send information. And so it basically allows these blockchain networks to plug into a blockchain purpose-built networking layer to increase the speed at which they can send data across the world. So I think it's been framed as a Solana project. A lot of people who are involved with it are, used to contribute to Solana. But the interesting thing for me is that it's actually applicable to any high performance blockchain. So they're starting out with Solana. Impressively, they already have 25% of Solana validator stake on the network using it. I would recommend going to their website. You can kind of see the performance improvements that these validators get from using it. But I think down the road, you're going to see a lot more chains plug into this, things like Aptos, Sui, anything that's high performance and really wants to push the limits of their architecture. So for me, it's an interesting development because it's for Solana specifically, it's part of an ongoing rollout of what I think are kind of like Solana 2.0, or maybe you want to even say 3.0, where they're upgrading the whole stack again after what we saw during 2021 and 2022. And so you've got the networking stack, you've got Alpenglow coming out, which is going to update consensus, increases in CU limits, updates to FireDancer, the existing Agave. And so for me, it's tech, as we were just talking about, tech has faded a little bit in terms of interest as people focus on distribution. But I think tech is really what keeps this stuff at the cutting edge and allows it to eventually catch up with, TradFi and Web 2 like applications. And that's what 00 is kind of building towards and ideally should enable in the future.
Yeah, really. And
do you know what makes it more efficient? Like why is using fiber?
Well, so you're still using the same type of architecture as the public internet, but you're just using dedicated fiber for these networks specifically instead of relying on the public internet. So, on the public internet, your transaction might be routed across an inefficient path, for example. 00 has built in a lot of different updates that make it, one thing's called multicast, that basically make it so that no matter what, your transaction is going to be getting it's going to be going on a faster path than it might have gone on it when it's on the public internet. But that said, it's not always going to be the case. If you look on, they have real-time kind of monitoring of public internet versus the 00 network. And you can see there are times when the public internet kind of operates at the same latency as 00 is. But I think the idea is over time, as it gains more adoption and continues to be built out, it'll, consistently outperform. And that's the way the project is set up, actually, the way, that 00 basically to succeed, validators need to do better and earn more money using it than they would using the existing public internet bandwidth.
Yeah, it also feels like this is something we're kind of splitting hairs with. So if it could even be 5-10% better than the public internet, like that could be a massive step function improvement in how a lot of these high performance chains work. So like I think it really speaks volumes on kind of where we're at in the development of this stuff and how competitive it has gotten to run some of this infrastructure.
Yeah, definitely. But I do think like we're talking about right now, it can increase performance a lot, but if you want that performance increases to like materialize anything, you need the demand side. And that's always the issue with crypto and these networks as it exists today, you know, is demand going to keep pace with the technology improvements.
Sounds like a very ambitious project. They're talking about literally laying fiber in the ground. Like, just to be clear, that's what we're talking about. New internet piping. I guess this is a DPIN project in the scheme of things, and that blockchains will be the primary demand, the buyers of this fiber. It's gonna be quite interesting to see how that plays out. Very ambitious project. And finally, before we get to the end of the show, MetaDAO, a Futarchy platform, launched on Solana last week and is getting a lot of discussion. Zach, what is Futarchy? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple things. There's kind of two prongs to it. In the way I look at it, it's an updated governance mechanism that kind of turns away from the one token equals one vote model. And it's also a legal innovation that sort of links the assets owned, either tangible or intangible, whether that's like a USDC treasury or the immaterial IP that the company owns, and links it directly to ownership over the token. So you as a token holder, for maybe the first time ever, have direct economic upside and an economic connection to whatever the DAO actually accomplishes. Right now, like it's a problem everybody's kind of aware of. It's the DAO starts up, it has its own equity, the company raises a bunch of money, equity all flows to the equity in the company. And then you just kind of have this phantom token that vaguely sort of is connected to the underlying company. Now that line is just completely eliminated under Futarchy. And then on the sort of governance side, no more one token equals one vote. It is purely determined by the price of the token in this sort of synthetic conditional market, where people essentially say, if I am bullish on this proposal, I will buy pass, and that will move the pass price higher in the conditional market. And then whichever is higher at the conclusion of the vote, pass or fail price, is what the ultimate outcome of the decision is. So it's kind of like this two-pronged thing: legal innovation for purely on-chain companies, and then a novel voting mechanism that kind of tries to counteract some of the downsides associated with the one token equals one vote model.
So Zach, I'm curious, like what does success look like for MetaDAO? Like how I guess now that it's picked up steam and is gaining a lot of attention, like what is the next stage look like?
Yeah, I mean, onboarding as many projects as possible. Like the way I kind of look at it is it's kind of inching towards the third evolution. It kind of started as this thing where they offered kind of just like a platform for companies like Jito, who already kind of use this one token equals one vote model, to kind of get their feet wet with Futarchy. And then they launched this like quote launchpad, which isn't totally a launchpad in my opinion, but it's fully permissioned. Essentially the founders just communicate with projects and they say, oh, you want to launch with us, we'll get you on board and all that stuff. And then they're going to kind of move on to this permissionless setup, where either you're going to have an out-of-the-box legal structure for these DAOs. It's going to come equipped with the voting mechanism, and you can just launch a project under this model at will. So getting to that permissionless stage and making it so that there's just as many Futarchies as there are traditional DAOs is how I'm kind of measuring success at this point.
Yeah, Zach, I was always kind of under the impression that it's just like a Futarchy governed launchpad. Could you maybe talk about how it's not a launchpad? Just kind of, I don't know. I was kind of under the impression.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at like regular launch pads like Pump or Believe, like it's still just kind of the same tokens that already exist. They kind of mostly resemble meme coins and not so much equity or ownership in an actual company. So while they kind of have gotten creative with the front end to kind of give that normal crypto user experience, the formation of the DAOs and kind of the material of them is vastly different from what you would see on like Believe or Pump. So it's mostly the structure of the DAO that's the real product here, and then you just kind of have the front end portal into these things that sort of looks like a launchpad. But in my opinion, like the ultimate product is not a launchpad.
Zach has been banging the drum on Futarchy for a long time, so I'm glad to see it play out. I think another cool thing is Robin Hanson, the guy who kind of is the inventor of this, is also a key inventor of like AMMs and also prediction markets. So, I mean, some of the most popular use cases of crypto, and it's now catching up with.
This is an economist, right? Robin Hanson. This is like one of the jokes we were saying, and it's really not a joke that, you know, crypto is sort of taking like, in some cases, long established or even more interestingly, novel and esoteric economics professors' ideas and putting them to practice in ways that had either never been done at all or being done. We should be trolling like these professor econ, like, you know, journals and figuring out, you know, like what crypto is going to build in 10 years. Should we not? I mean,
yeah.
Oh man. Well,
I think that has been a good amount of time looking at some of the old academic papers, trying to figure out what he should go ahead and build.
All right. Before we wrap, everyone, what are you looking at for the next week? What's on your desk? The Galaxy research team. What's catching your eye?
I mean, for me, I'm super into like meme coins and all that. I think what's super interesting to look at right now is 4.meme on BSC just flipped Axiom in 24-hour revenue. I haven't seen this happen recently. So kind of like retail meme traders have been rotating from Solana to BSC. I think a big reason for this is that the trading infrastructure on Solana is so developed now that it's really, really hard to make meaningful profits if you're not like an insider. Every coin gets, you know, every good coin gets like 40 versions of the same coin launched and just like vamped right away. And so I feel like BSC people are kind of holding tokens longer. People are like, you know, less likely to just sell right away. I feel like a lot of this activity started picking up right when Aster launched, just because people, you know, I mean, BNB is up to $1,200. I think it's up like 40% in the last month or something. Yeah, this 4 token just went to $200 million market cap. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking at, is to see if there will be like maybe a rotation back to Solana, or, you know, if things are going to stick around there.
Yeah. I mean, Axiom just recorded its lowest 2 weeks of fees since April. So definitely some attrition happening there. I think for me, I'm working on a big Solana report, so everyone be on the lookout for that. Big overview of what's happening, a lot of exciting developments, a lot of competition. And then I think the other thing is Monad and MegaETH have been teasing their launches now for about a month. And Monad, I thought, was going live last week based on their tweets, but has not launched. But I think those launches should be coming very soon, and it's going to be extremely interesting to see what activity is like there. There's a huge fight for users across the space, as we've talked about. And I'm guessing we're going to see some Perp DEXs launching with those projects immediately, and seeing how Perp's activity takes off will be a good gauge of how much traction they've gotten before launch.
Yeah, and keeping consistent with the Futarchy theme, Umbra actually just opened their ICO deposit about 54 minutes ago. So following the success of that, we'll see what happens. They have a minimum target raise of, I think, 750,000. And so far, both of the MetaDAO ICOs have well exceeded their target raises. So we'll see what's happening there. And over the course of the next month, I think there's 4 or 5 other ICOs that are opening up. So we are about to see the number of Futarchies, I think, quintuple from here over the next month. So really exciting stuff.
All right. Well, I am also watching what happens here sustaining with the Bitcoin price, and whether we can push forward, because right now we just barely an incremental all-time high. Would like to see it break further up and then hold this as support to actually establish this as a new range, because I'm sorry, but I've seen this show before. We were at 124K, were we not, just a month and a half ago? And then went all the way back down. So lots of volatility. Would like to see a change in the price regime before I get too confident through the rest of the year. That's it for this week's episode of Galaxy Grid. Thank you, Will, Lucas, Zach. We'll see everyone next week.